So here I am, one day while working on a ROM for a video, an idea that definitely without a reason pops in my head. What if someone else just did the work and I took their credit? Well, actually that's been already done by others. Instead, I'll just use the ROM hacks/fangames you willingly submitted to see if we, mostly just me, can learn something from my viewers. I'll score the games based on their uniqueness, quality and enjoyment, but that's enough with the blabbering. Who's up first? Being the first of only 2 ROMs submitted today, Pokemon Fire Red, A Loser's Game, is a ROM made by Lil Pariah, which has its main feature be the rebalancing of the Pokemon roster to remove overpowered and underpowered Pokemon alike by reducing or increasing their stat totals to be within the range of 420 to 480. Like you could guess based on that premise, or the clearly visible credits text, the ROM hack features Pokemon from all generations up to Gen 8, modern mechanics alongside it. However, besides the rebalancing and expanded roster offered upon booting up the game, A Loser's Game is your usual ROM hack that gives little to no map, story or combat changes besides the new teams given to gym leaders or trainers, while also having some slight, yet appreciated quality of life features. The main new thing lies alongside the newly rebalanced Pokemon, which happens by most of them having a new typing with new moves they learn to come along with it. That sometimes can push it for the sake of, let's change it, why not? Instead of making sense. Giving some Pokemon Mega Evolutions as a new Evo stage, or giving just the starters new forms. Now, I get putting Pokemon like Ladybuzz, Skitty, Morlul and so on to make them actually usable, give a justifiable type change, or just put some deserved spotlight on it respectively. But some changes like the Magikarp seller giving Hubfu instead, and changing some Pokemon's abilities to much stronger things, still get some bombastic side-eyes from me in some moments, making the whole main shtick of the game questionable in the first place. Same feelings go for some slight bugs I encountered at some points too. However, having Ledi and not Rot in the doo-doo stinky tier for yet another Pokemon game was somewhat enjoyable and not at all bias-inducing, which the same goes for other Pokemon I've barely used even after all my ROM hack, fangame and official Pokemon game experiences. So with that in mind, Pokemon A Loser's Game sets the baseline with a score that'll probably make it fluctuate in the rankings more than my daily opinions on if Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul is better. Help me decide in the comments, and sub to while you're at it. Anyways, since this was the first and technically second to last ROM hack for today, why not switch it up with a fan game next and ramp up the craziness of the games as we go. Having Cooprite's project be the second fan game of today, Pokemon of the Elements is a Pokemon fan game that was created for the 8th Relic Castle Game Jam. Rest in peace. However, the term Pokemon could be slightly untrue when it comes to this game. Like the game's description on EV Expo and the replaced in-game intro may make you think, you get placed in the setting of medieval knight times as a rookie knight that recently finished training by getting promoted to a higher status of serving the king and queen. Like how any main character seems to have the situation play out, you and one other trainee get picked out for your mildly good enough to be above the average skills by the Royals to take on the task of collecting all the relics by exploring dungeons, solving puzzles, and beating bosses. Sounds vaguely similar to a different Nintendo game, yet you don't want to say it out loud due to fear of getting it wrong? Dude, this ain't 4th grade. Just say you thought of Legend of Zelda out loud next time. But yes, of the elements, taking inspiration from the earliest Zelda games is noticeable quite well, with how nicely it ends up blending in with the Pokemon formula. Pretty much just replace all the Pokemon battles with Zelda enemies from the original games and you would have a Zelda fangame instead. Though, just how good it blends together is what makes it work, even if the experience was kind of boxed or limited due to it being a Game Jam game. I mean, having 3 hearts for the player that can be lost from dungeon hazards or timed obstacles, having 2D sections to get the correct keys, and having a reorganized type table does more than enough, in my eyes, to have a max 5 out of 5 for the uniqueness criteria. Or maybe I just haven't played enough fangames. Still a 5 nonetheless. As for the quality, it can be a bit weird to judge a Game Jam game compared to mostly complete or finished games in the same list, but having the only real problem that still can be written off as a nitpick is just a misplaced Sog backsprite, and nothing more says enough to be a 4 out of 5 just from that. So, by finishing off with a comment about how surprisingly refreshing and weirdly nostalgic it was to play an OG Pokemon Zelda game with their 2 main mechanics mixed successfully enough to get a 4.5 out of 5 for enjoyment. Pokemon of the Elements closes off its dedicated segment with a 5-point dominance in first place for now. Will there be a game that tops it? If so, will it be as soon as the next game? Well, there's only one way to find out. With another fangame up next, Random Chiz has submitted to us Pokemon Random Rainbow, the one to remind us that just because it's a fangame, it doesn't mean that the majority of the game is not one-to-one with Vanilla, Fire Red, and Leaf Green. Based on what I experienced after finishing the whole demo after the 3rd gym, the main thing that Random Rainbow seems to bring to the table is having the gym's typings be reordered with new leaders along that. For example, water being first instead of second, ground being second instead of last, poison third instead of fifth, and that's it. The demo didn't even sneak a peek for the rest. Throw in just one Fakemon, some changes to the wild encounters, and general environmental changes that possibly could be just things that came with the Pokemon Essentials pack when making the fangame, but honestly that's just a guess. Balancing was more tipsier than Spinda's 3D model at moments, which either meant having to grind to beat a high-level Sap Sipper Metal and Lightning Rod Goldeen against the first gym's first trainer, or just steamroll all the trainers with a highly overleveled Pokemon thanks to the shared EXP. Though I honestly would call that a positive over grinding any minute of the hour. But most importantly, how does this reflect in the Random Rainbow's rating? Like you could expect with comments of 1-to-1 Fire Red Leaf Green energy, mostly unchanged from the Essentials pack vibe, and balancing comments that I mentioned before, the total of 6.5 out of 15 seems harsher than I actually feel, but that's what I came to after going over my thoughts when finishing the demo. Though if this is your first project, Random Chiz, I totally suggest you try and continue making more games. Trust me, even having just one Fakemon and as simple of a gimmick as redone gym battles is already like 70 to 80% more original than your usual Radical Red copycats or bare bones Essentials reskins out there. I didn't start super strong either. Blech. Wait, say that again? Like the document you can open to read, or the game shows itself in the first 5 minutes, Pokemon Super Yellow by Hazy Crazy is the most compact game, while on the other hand, having the most or least content to play with depending on what type of Pokemon fan you are. Religiously watching Wolfie VGC? Great, here's a Pokemon Showdown-like fan game for you. Maybe you're just a casual Pokemon fan that mostly just plays the story and that's it? Well, here's a fan game that has a collection of every special and notable trainer from not just the main games, but even spin-offs like Pokemon Battle Revolution that have custom or one-to-one teams that you can tackle with any team combination you make from everything that's given to you for free frame 1. Of course, it can't be a fan-made game without some custom changes to Pokemon by having different abilities, types or move pools, but I guess the variety of life is spice, or however that saying goes. So, by having a game that covers a specific niche in the community, opinions can vary, so what's my take on it? As someone who lies in between both given examples, while slightly leaning more to the casual side, the main enjoyment I got from my time with it was, well, just going through the boxes and learning that some of my animated sprites I've made in the past are a part of the Essentials pack. Like you could expect, I just took the first 6 that had my sprites, mashed something quickly together, battled some trainers that stood out, or I had the type advantage, and just enjoyed the trainer gallery while running around to see if there's anything more to it. Based on that, you probably wouldn't be surprised to hear me say that this ended up being the shortest playthrough out of all the 8 games, but it still qualifies for the review. Now, in terms of uniqueness solely in the fan game space, I personally haven't seen anything like this before, but that's most likely due to Pokemon Showdown and a threat of Pokemon champions looming over anyone even daring to do something like them. But even if it's just a battle sim fan game, having the NPCs as the main opponents with some buffs and new additions to the Pokemon does enough to be a 4. However, that same thing is a small nitpick for me, since I would love to have at least an option to play with the vanilla versions of all the Pokemon somewhere, hence deducting half a point. Having no place for bugs due to the small scope and the nice surprise of animated sprites, getting the most quality of life features out of all the fan games by technicality, and more, some slight freezes here and there, while not removing the default randomizer and Nuzlocke options for a battle sim catches it half a point short from the max. As for enjoyment, I think my previous comments of being a filthy casual with a hint of non-official Pokemon content dabbling would explain the enjoyment rating, though this is easily the one that can vary the most depending on the type of player. Another place where it brings some extra variety is its place in the ranking, shifting the list to take the second spot. And with that, we are halfway through the review. Based on that, I would guess that I'm sufficient enough as background noise, so subscribe and reserve some content for the future. I could also plug my Patreon and members as ways to support what I do while getting something, but that would be greedy, so I won't do that. Alright, enough selling out. Let's get back to it with the second and final ROM of today. Not knowing what the ROM was initially called due to the file being just called Super Cool Spot. What the fuck is that? The actual name of Joey Z's game was Pokemon Super Cool Spot. Who could have seen that coming? Using Emerald instead of Fire Red as its base, Pokemon Super Cool Spot is pretty much what you would expect your average shitpost in the form of a ROM hack to look like. adding some new quote-unquote Pokemon that just boil down to be beverage or other product mascots, food/drink based new Pokemon forms, or just new gym leaders that range from Roxanne going through her emo phase, with her gym becoming Dark-type 2, to the Camel cigarette mascot picking up Flannery's slack. Besides some visual changes and different dialogue that 9 times out of 10 now includes memes or references, I kind of expected the new additions to end there, but as I continued playing and found new locations, funny gags, new moves, really committing to the bit type of items, the themes now being Pepsi versus Coke, and other small things that reminded me that ROM hacks can be more than just edgy. Is it mostly just Emerald once again? Of course it is. But the same applies for Run and Bun, Inclement Emerald, and others, though the thing that makes them worthwhile are their specific new focuses. In Super Cool Spot's case, a hack that doesn't take itself seriously and keeps you going with the curiosity of seeing how the stupidness 1-ups, or 7-ups if you're in a funny mood, itself after the previous Dr. Pepper being an actual doctor, or Wally's uncle actually being that guy.
You're not that guy, pal.
As for the rest, just take this review and turn it into a patch and put it onto the base game of Pokemon Emerald, and that should fill in all the blanks. You see, that was a ROM patching joke for all the gamers. I know you appreciated that one. But yeah, it carves its own identity by using the method of quality over quantity, while the quality itself can be seen down to the smallest thing of even giving new animations for the new moves alongside the other previously seen features. And even if the jokes came in sparse moments, when they did come, they were as enjoyable as the Zelda Pokemon Mashups gameplay. Oh, I giggled as a middle schooler when the guy did a thing, and that was as much fun as an actual unique game. Sue me! Actually, don't do that, I won't have time for Need for Speed later. But hey, at least check out the ride. Pretty cool, right? Right? Off topic. Okay, off topic. Let's just... yeah. The total is enough to repeat the action of taking second place. Didn't expect such variety in the scores just from 5 games, but we still have 3 chances left to see if it ends up differing even more. Being the only one with this type of situation in this video, and probably ever, this next Pokemon fan game was submitted by a member of a PokeTuber's YouTube channel. Pokemon Potassium is a community project hosted by TastyKenter, where the viewers' ideas for Fakemon, region, and other parts of the game came together and got assembled into one complete fan game. Though, at the time of writing this script, it's still an ongoing project. So if you want to join their community effort, I'll link their channel and Discord in the description. But that's enough about the backstory and lore of this game. Let's just get into the thing we're here for, the fan game and its contents. I played up until Gym 1, and I'll get into why later, but for now we're introduced to the Banerica region as we're old enough to start accomplishing any tasks we like, including catching Pokemon, of course. Don't worry, paying taxes is an option too, you freaking demon. Feeling out the idea, apparently waking up from a multi-day slumber, literally me, and getting our starters in the form of ordering Fakemon that people eat from the local deli as protection for a Pokemon that's terrorizing the town. It takes no longer than 10 minutes to get unchained from the tutorial's grasp and start to suspect that them being named Donamon has something to do with almost all the designs being food/beverage based. But speaking about the food mons, like wake up babe, Pokemon Sweet Free just dropped. Soon enough, arriving to the first town that actually has a Poke Center, so that you don't have to walk from your house every time you faint, we get sent on a fetch quest to learn about how to get into the blocked first gym, get some flowers, battle the guy for the information, and the one in front of the entrance too. Upon entering the gym, the main puzzle is role-playing as Solid Snake while avoiding Diglets and getting sent to the start if you get caught. No problem, the 2 floors take a while, but I eventually get through. Why is it dark here though? Wait, there's still a Diglett puzzle here? I didn't get a flash TM even after walking in most of the houses, so surely this is just a glitch, right? Well, after struggling for a good while to walk in any way that I could get through it, I got so frustrated and just gave up. I'll take the heat if it's just a bug, or just showcased my luck by not walking into the one house that had flash, but it's ridiculous if that's actually intended. Though, since I'm starting to bring up points like this, I think we just might as well start going over the ratings. I think we all can agree that even if this was just a slightly different Fire Red or Emerald, the fact that this is a collaborative community project is more than enough to give it a high uniqueness rating. But seeing that there's a whole new cast of cool Fakemon, completely custom region, story, and so on, makes Pokemon Potassium way overqualified for a 5 out of 5. Heck, I'm more than happy to give it a 6 out of 5. When it comes to the game's quality, it's still definitely higher than the average of the previous games and has the excuse of being a work-in-progress project. But having the pacing be even a bit wonky so early in the game, some dialogue that's a bit too corny for my taste, ironic after the previous game I know, slight inconsistencies with the sprite quality, and other more nitpickier nitpicks that brings the rating down, it still is enough for a respectable 3.5 out of 5. Enjoyment, however, right from the get-go, as I mentioned, the only way to get healed is by potions from the mart, since your mom isn't home to give free heals. Nor are there any Pokemon centers up until the first gym city. Want to train up a Pokemon, spit up some cash, or black out on purpose. And when you do get to the city and take on the gym, there's a black screen while you get reset multiple times in a row until giving up. Once again, I'm ready to take these comments back if it's my fault or a bug, but it just really left a bad taste in my mouth and didn't make me want to play it again either way. I still had fun trying out the Donomons, as you do with any fan-made Pokemon game with new designs, while also having some lines that actually did land well. But sometimes there's just some small things that are enough to ruin the whole experience. So with that slightly shaky at the end review, the total is enough to still make it land in 3rd place. Looks like the extra point was important after all. I'm more than confident that it could reach even higher when it will get fully completed, and I wish the best to TastyKenter and his members. But for now, let's continue on with another work in progress. Supposedly going up only to the 4th gym in the given demo, Spicy Gecko has submitted to us his fan game, Pokemon Frontiers. As they themselves have also described in a Reddit post about their game, Frontier's story revolves around the main character that's a part of a space colony by the name of the Silver Ship in the far future. The colony self-sustains itself by powering the spaceship with resources they gain as they float through space, which is the main thing that weaves the plot together, alongside trying to find out why people are falling into comas left and right. The story is good enough to have a reason for playing the game, but how does playing it actually feel like? Having the roster be split between new and official Pokemon once again, the intrigue to try out some completely new or custom additions to existing Pokemon is enough to get at least some engagement from me. But unfortunately, it goes a bit downhill from there. From weird, out of balance level scaling, with things such as level 9 pincers and level 11 milk tanks that you have to battle real early with Pokemon as strong as shriveled bananas and wet paper towels, to confusing layouts that get you more lost than actual intended mazes in the same game, the game just ends up having some lacking parts here and there that just builds up as you go. Simplistic tiling and empty barren fields can be excused if there's a point of interest or happens rarely enough to not really stand out. But having plenty of areas that have half of it just be one repeating tile, sorry, but the adorable puppy bug can only carry for so long. Now, despite me becoming a bit of a negative Nancy, there's still other parts that I enjoyed despite their own little quirks. Although some of the sprites could use some extra polish or even get a menu sprite in the first place, I love how out there some of the designs can be. Like, stop lying when you're saying that you have seen a literal flute bird fakemon anywhere else than here. Same goes for the plot of becoming a member of a futuristic space colony that functions the same as a region. Of course, having access to XP all early is always a big W, and I will die on that hill too. Also, playing through it and getting some suspicions that this could be Spicy Gecko's first fan game project ever. Here's their project's Discord as a premature apology if not. The fact that they have done as much as this should and is impressive at a scope like this. So with some shortcomings to be expected, I feel like the uniqueness, quality and enjoyment ratings I came to respectively should be at the very least somewhat understandable. With Frontiers now taking the 5th spot, there's only one slot left in the leaderboard. Where do you think will land the final game by the name of? Concluding with the final, qualifying, game that was submitted to me, a demo of Pokemon Garlic Green by Spiky Jeff is about catching and battling Pokemon, clever guess. Basically, the main objective is to complete the dex as you travel through the region while taking part in these dojo tournaments that seem to be the special thing in this game. After picking Bulbasaur from the Legends-inspired theming, before all the other researchers, I battled the rival that almost beats your average YouTube Shorts commenter's grammar level the other way around, and headed off to help the clerk fight off a wild, angry Bidoof. Wait, is this objectively the first time that we've ever seen a Bidoof be angry, like, ever?
Wrong.
Anyways, that knocked off enough time for the dojo to be ready for the tournament, but actually not. Another Pokemon that I think I've never seen be angry before.
Wrong.
Defeat in the kitchen later. We're finally ready to see the main gimmick. Oh wait, that's the demo. No, goddamn. Well, better short and sweet then. Actually, short and sweet is good enough on its own. The dev Spiky Jeff also gives some insight into what they have planned for the future, but after that, the demo is actually over. So, any suggestions for how to rate it? I mean, I don't think there are any more better bones than bare bones, but I would describe what we experienced as that. Hence, it kind of feeling weird to give it a rating, but I guess we can try. Having each criteria have the max be 4, since we did the same for other demos, it has potential to be more unique with what's promised, but I guess the dojo tourneys and regular/shiny crabby door rugs will hold the fort with a 2. I have some suspicions that my rival wasn't invisible and just wasn't there after all, but the dev did clarify that they're still working on stuff like that and giving an actual title screen. 2? Yeah, I think that works. Oh wait, no, those crabby rugs and the dojo was pretty stylish, so maybe 2.5. As for the one that isn't actually forced, the enjoyment I got from my 12-minute and 43-second experience before knowing it was going to be that short was actually good, even after an 8 fan-made Pokemon game marathon. Saving the clerk from a Bidoof, liking the ridiculousness of the rival, and cutting straight to the point attitude was charming enough. And If me kind of wanting to see how the tournament would work didn't speak for my engagement with the slice of the game I got, then I think a free should help with that instead. Huh, I guess that's how it ends up being then. Honestly, I'm good with just counting as a complimentary meal at the end, and not applicable for the rankings if you like, but it just kind of fits better for a ranking system.
What do you say fuck me for?
Though, if some of my opinions don't end up aligning with yours, then I hope that, at the very least, I got your interest in one of these completed or upcoming projects. Thank you to everyone that submitted their projects. I hope I gave y'all some feedback you could use, like maybe making some changes, or never listening to a YouTuber again. Thank you patrons for your awesome support, and I do mean it. Become a member for some stuff, I guess, untitled Twitter plug, and stay tuned for more. I guess untitled post-credit scene too.